I ended up buying a real estate investment at the age of 20 years old on my own without even telling my parents. They were like old school Italian. They didn't want me to invest. I kind of tried to plant the seed beforehand.
Welcome back to NextGen by NuCare, a podcast for senior living providers looking for solutions to improve their business and take ideas from thought leaders from across the industry and across the country. I'm Joel Moyer, the host. I'm welcoming Roberto Carabetta today from Blue Shores Capital. Roberto and I are partnering on 4 new properties in Florida and hoping to expand on that. He's an investor that has used a new version of syndication entering senior living, and I'm excited for him to share all of that today. Roberto, welcome to my podcast, NextGen by NuCare. I'm really excited to discuss your story about how you landed here in senior living investments and how you got here. So again, welcome, and thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joel. You're someone I look up to in the industry, in the sector, and I'm honored to be on the show. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about your career history, a little bit about who you are and how you've made a journey to South Florida and have started your investment career in senior living properties, bringing a lot of great people to this business.
Yeah, so I'll start kind of from the beginning. So I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and I'm currently living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So around the age of 17, I started working at one of the top 6 banks in Canada. I was working as a teller. Back then, they had tellers. I'm not sure if they have tellers nowadays at the banks, but I was a teller interacting with all kinds of customers, people with high net worth, people with lots of debt, people in between. And as the 1 or 2 years went on, I noticed a pattern. All these high net worth individuals had something in common. They were all tied to real estate. They all came in on a monthly basis, depositing a rent check. They were in construction. They were a developer. They're a realtor. They all had real estate attached to them. So all the high net worth guys that came in on a regular basis were attached to real estate. So as the years went on, I was still working at the bank. And I thought to myself, if these guys can do it, why can't I? So living in Toronto was a young city back then, wasn't much new development in the downtown core. There wasn't no internet, or I wasn't on the internet 20, 25 years ago. So I took a drive to the downtown core of Toronto and started looking at new builds and new construction and whatever opportunity that I can find. A couple months passed when I was doing my market research, boots on the ground, and I ended up buying a real estate investment at the age of 20 years old on my own without even telling my parents. They were like old school Italian. They didn't want me to invest. I kind of tried to plant the seed beforehand. They said, no, keep your money in your pocket. It's better. So I signed on the dotted line with the advice of a lawyer that I met through the bank. So he said, the documents are good. Go ahead and sign. So around 20, 21 years old is when I first made my first investment in real estate. A couple years later, I was still at the bank, and then I kind of got tired of the bank. I was there for 6 years, made my way up to a financial advisor, but I knew it wasn't for me. So I looked at my father. He had his own general contracting company, so I decided to go work with him. It's kind of like real estate. He's always in a new house. He's always remodeling homes. He always talks to trades. He knows how to build a house. So I learned from him for a handful of years on different trades, from electrician, plumbing, tile setting, framing, and how to deal with actual customers, right? Like the clients, the suppliers, the tradesmen. So that gave me a whole depth of knowledge in the real estate sector because they kind of tie in together.
No, so I have a similar, career path. So after college or during college, I remember, specifically saying, my mom is a geriatric nurse practitioner. I'm like, well, I don't think I'll ever work in that. Like I want to be in some other type of healthcare. And I, went as a pre-med major and then worked in a hospital emergency room in college and decided working with these interns and hearing about, you're going to be 30 years old before you really, work your way through to becoming a physician. And I really wasn't interested in that. So I went down the healthcare administration path. But similar to you, I ended up joining my mom in senior living and worked the floor, ran a very small building, learned the ins and outs of all the different aspects, how you work with directly with residents, with their families, how you work with the team members, um, and then all of the back end business stuff about developing new facilities and acquiring facilities. So I went down that similar path. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it is kind of a parallel in different industry, and then 20 some years later we connect. So yeah, keep going with your story about how you're working with your dad and learning all the different aspects of the business.
Yeah, I see that pretty commonly, especially when I was younger. Is the son or daughter kind of follows one of the parents' paths? Because I think it has to do with you're always around it subconsciously, right? In the home kind of family environment, you're always around it. So you kind of at 15, 20 years old, you don't know what you want to be. So you just look at their parents and say, okay, I'll do what they do. But I truly fell in love with home renovations and contracting, right? Like I truly love it. Um, so I ended up working with my dad for about 8 years. I had a different vision of the company. I wanted to grow, to expand, to sub out different jobs at once. He was more like, let me do the work and keep the money in my pocket type of guy. Like older generation, older thought process. He's not at fault. It's just different mindset. So I veered on my own, and I ended up opening my own general contracting company, remodeling homes, bathrooms, kitchens, home renovations, open concept stuff like that. In that time frame, so I had that company for 14 years. So in that whole time frame, from when I first bought my initial property in real estate at age 20 till about age 35, I accumulated 10 single family rental properties all in the Toronto area. So every couple of years, I was looking to buy a property. So I had one, it went up in value and appreciation. I refinanced to buy a second one. Two, go up in appreciation, refinance, you buy a third, and so on. So it was very lucrative to me. Toronto was a young market. It just exploded. Uh, I put a lot of my success towards being in real estate at the right time. So fast forward during the COVID time. COVID was great to me. The construction industry was booming. I honestly did really good those 3-4 years during COVID. It was all good. I just wasn't happy with the economy of Canada, the political situation, the future for my kids. I have younger kids, and hey, why not change it up a little bit, right? You live once. So that's when my wife and I decided to move down to Florida. We ended up in Fort Lauderdale. My wife owns and operates a diabetic management clinic down in Fort Lauderdale area. So that was our entry into the States. And then that's where I started getting more in depth on commercial real estate. So I had the single family residential real estate up in Canada. I'm in Fort Lauderdale. I don't want to do the general contracting anymore. I don't want to start a new business like that. It takes a lot of time and effort. So I started getting into groups, masterminds that were purchasing multifamily assets, 50 units, 70 unit, 100 unit, whatever it is. So I dove deep into that kind of as soon as I got to Fort Lauderdale. I needed something to do. And that was all good. I learned a lot. It was all good, successful so far. Everyone needs a place to stay, right? There'll always be a renter market out there. So multifamily is not going anywhere. It's about 18 months ago where my whole vision changed. And that's how you and I got connected in this senior living space. It was 18 months ago, and one of my partners sent me an email. He says, check this underwriting out. It's a senior living asset. I'm like, okay, I didn't know you can syndicate senior living facilities. I thought it was just the Joels of the world that operate them and take care of them. I didn't know I can be a part.
Well, it so on that side, there isn't much. The typical owner of senior living for years, that I've been involved in this business for 30 years. The owners of the properties that we've managed or that we've leased or partnered with have been individual investors with deep pockets or institutional investors, investment groups. So there's several REITs that own a lot of senior living properties, that you can partner with, and then on a more local regional level, um, individual investors who have done multifamily housing, but have want to do it on their own. Those are the typical senior living owners, and that's why I wanted to have you talk more about your process now. And you just mentioned syndication. So the people that are listening to this right now don't even know what that term means, generally speaking. So explain, before you go too deep into the rest of your history, or up to now where you are. Explain more about what syndication means for real estate investing.
Yeah. So on a high level, syndication is two parts. You have one part, general partners that find the deal, source the deal, underwrite the deal, raise the needed capital, um, contact the legal side, contact a broker. They take care of organizing and structuring the purchase of that asset. On the other side, you have limited partners, which are the investors that the general partners turn to invest in. So, for example, we need to buy this property for $10 million. The bank might give us 70% of that value. So they're going to give us $7 million. We need an additional $3 million plus any fees and maybe renovation and capital expenditure budget. So call it, we need $5 million for easy numbers. Now we turn to the limited partners to raise capital to invest. And in turn, we give them an equity stake in the asset. So they're owners of the property with us, and we give them returns. So 8% cash return annually, 20% cash return annually, whatever that number is over a certain time period. They are, nothing's guaranteed, but they are promised an X amount of return over that whole period. So the general partners are in charge of the decision making, and the limited partners are the silent partner that don't have to deal with a property, but get all the cash flow and distribution first.
So again, speaking in general terms, people looking to invest don't have to be writing a check for $1 million anymore in this type of scenario, correct? So they can be a much smaller investor, a more average investor who may not feel as comfortable with the stock market or in the volatility there and with the economy and things. And as you said early on, you realize that real estate, is solid. Long term, the people who have, significant wealth, a lot of them are, come from real estate. Now there's tech and other things, but those are, you know, sky in the pie hopes and dreams. But real estate is tried and true, and people make money on it. And when you own real estate, as I always say, real estate never goes down to a zero value. That
It's like impossible,
there's always
right? Like,
something there. There's something
yeah,
there.
the whole world has to explode for real estate to go to zero, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
the
then we have
trend
bigger
line
problems.
historically, the trend line in real estate is always going up. You might have to time the market a certain way, but the trend line is always up to the right. So yeah, to your point, the investors don't have to deal with a property management company, changing toilets, renovating units, collecting rent, evictions. They're honestly a silent partner that's getting first cash flow distributions. So limited partners get paid first before the general partners, and then we split the shares once a sale occurs. So they're kind of traditionally higher net worth individuals that already have their career, doctors, lawyers, construction workers. They have their career, they're making decent money. They just need a place to park their extra cash. And in turn, they can double or triple their investment over a certain time period. So they don't have to worry about the actual asset, but they still get the cash returns.
So they don't have to go out and search and find opportunities. And then I think in senior living, there's some more risk than general multifamily housing because of labor costs and other expenses that don't exist as a big part of what you're doing, and even the range that you can charge for a room. Because there's care and services being provided, and that's a big chunk of either the positive or the negative side of an investment in senior living. So people, the average person, it's even harder to evaluate senior living properties without some experience and expertise as part of that group. And to do it individually is very difficult.
I totally agree. It's if you're investing as a limited partner in a senior living syndication, things that you and I are currently working on, those investors are limiting their own risk. It's the operators like Joel and NuCare and syndicators like Roberto that take on all the risk, right? Because we are kind of the face of that business of that asset. Nothing's going to fall back to the limited partners. They just take on the upside and de-risk themselves, so they can diversify themselves in multifamily and senior living, and if they like stocks, they can go into stocks. But senior living investments, I think, is a huge opportunity, a huge niche for potential investors to look at, right? Just on the kind of economics, the supply and demand that we're seeing right now, it's a great opportunity that you see and I see in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, as you said, next 15, 20 years or beyond, the people are living longer. They're living longer before they need services. They can care for themselves or provide care and services in their home longer. But then when they do need service, the services can be more extensive. Now, the beauty of senior living is it's a huge spectrum, of active adults that are older, places like the villages, um, newer, bigger complexes that have all kinds of, beautiful amenities for active adults, and workout rooms and theaters and party rooms, and, swimming pools and areas to grill out, all of the things that you would see in a higher end multifamily complex, apartments and condos are now being slightly adapted for seniors who then want someone to make a few meals for them, to provide some housekeeping, and then potentially add some services even within their more of an apartment style versus a bedroom style unit. And it's really cool how the industry just keeps evolving based on those expanded needs of seniors.
Yeah, yeah, like you said, they're living longer, so they're not getting sick per se, but they're just living longer, and they just need those little tweaks in care, right? One resident could have a high care level, another resident could have a lower care level. But a part of living in these independent living facilities or assisted living facilities, I see from when I go tour them and when I'm about to purchase these assets, it's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of community for these residents, right? They might be widowed, or they might, their son or daughter might have moved out of state. So they don't want to be just left at home in a 2,000 square foot building doing nothing. They want a sense of community, right? So to your point, some could even still drive, and they're still kind of active, right? It's not the sick that are in these places, right? It could be a wide range of this on the spectrum.
Yeah, my own parents moved in 2 years ago. My mom is a geriatric nurse practitioner. During COVID, my dad had 3 strokes, and we needed to bring services into their home, and that worked for a while. But then what we realized, and luckily, my mom spoke up, and we realized how much of a burden it was on her. How much, even though we were bringing people in, things were happening off hours where there wasn't help, and she was still having to provide those services, and she was getting close, 78 years old, and it was a lot on her mentally and physically, and not able to sleep and do all the things. So they moved into an apartment style model where they could bring services in for my dad. My mom didn't need services. Well, over this past Christmas, my dad passed away. And, I kind of wondered, would my mom stay there? And she's like, yeah, I have friends here now. I have book club. I have bridge club. We do this. We play cards. We do this. We socialize. Somebody comes to my room, to my apartment every day at 5:30. And if I'm on the phone with you, Joel, I'm going to hang up and we got to go to dinner. We uh we have an active schedule. And she's done tai chi and yoga and things that she had never done before. And she's like, oh my gosh, my shoulder, was kind of stiff, and now it's, I got strength in it, and I'm more stable walking around. And they have a more active social life by being around other people without having to drive around. She drives around. She actually still has a management company that runs nine assisted living communities.
That's wild.
She has a driver that drives her to Green Bay once a week. She goes online and teaches caregiver training classes, including medication management and other things, because she still enjoys that part of her life as well. So she's not giving up that, but she's living in a community running 9 other communities.
That's a pretty cool story, a cool scenario. And probably that's 99% of the reason why she's still active, right? Still young, right? She doesn't stop, and she just wants that sense of community, but she still has to live her life and do the things that she loves.
Right. She's finally learned how to balance. Finally balance her life with her personal life and work life, and she still enjoys the work aspect of it and the leadership side. So but yeah, so what you're doing, that I see is different and unique, is bringing in a whole bunch, exposing senior living as an opportunity to literally hundreds, if not thousands of people that didn't even think about ever having the opportunity because it just didn't come up. We've all seen the opportunities to invest in some new development and put a smaller amount, $100,000 or something else, into a development of new, condos, apartments, office building, whatever it is. And now it's exciting to me that more of the average investor can figure out a way to invest in real estate, but in my world of real estate, in senior living. And we all know that there's an opportunity. It's kind of a hot market right now because the construction cost is so high. And for people who don't understand what that means, when we look at new construction opportunities, it's $350,000 to $400,000 a unit. So when you look at, even when we're doing smaller projects, 30, 40, 50 units, it's still a lot of money. So when you see these new senior living complexes that go up and there's 125 units, it still costs that much, per unit to build these. So there's a lot of even larger operators out there that are looking for acquisition because you can buy things significantly less expensive than you can build it. And the opportunity is there.
Yeah. So I look at senior living assets and calling brokers almost on a weekly basis, trying to get deal flow and underwrite these deals. And what I see in the senior living space is exactly to your point. I'm looking at these deals and these assets that are existing buildings, existing operations. They're kind of stabilized, maybe 70, 80% occupancy. The owner, that mom and pop owner, wants out, right? They've been through that COVID downturn, that they're coming on their way up to stabilization, and they just want out. They don't want to go through another downturn again. So we're seeing these units under $100,000 per unit. So new construction, like you said, is 300, 350 plus for new construction per unit. We're buying an existing facility with operations, bringing Joel and NuCare to change the operation, but we're buying them at $100,000 a unit or lower. So sometimes our insurance provider is insuring us above replacement cost, which to me, that just smells like opportunity. So when your insurance can't even match the price tag you're paying for these facilities and their minimum is above your purchase price, to me, it's an opportunity, right? You have that huge demand of that silver tsunami, that baby boomer generation that's coming up. I think 10,000 people a day turn 65 years or older. So that whole generation, a big percentage would need a place to stay. And to your point, there's no supply coming online. There's no new development. High construction costs, high labor costs. No one wants to invest that kind of capital when they can just buy an existing building. So you have that economic imbalance of huge demand and low supply. So right there's an investment opportunity in any cycle.
Yeah, it is. And going back to, as you had mentioned, the mom and pop owners of these buildings, although there are large providers, national providers that have, 100 locations or more, the backbone of senior living are the smaller local, regional providers that may have 1 to 3 buildings. And when you look at this industry really took off 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, the people who were doing this were in their 50s. Well, fast forward 20 years, they're in their 70s and they want to get out. And COVID really pushed a lot of buttons and made it very difficult on them. And they're really just at the point of like, I need to exit this. I've been through good times and bad times, and now we're, a couple of years removed. I got things kind of stabilized again. But I don't ever want to have to go through that again. Those are the stories I hear is like, I survived somehow, but it sucked. It was bad. And we didn't know what we're doing. We're just like stumbling our way through it and hoping the vaccines come soon, and then hoping that we're not, our employees are not bringing, and the employees were scared to bring, COVID into the buildings to these vulnerable people. And they love the residents, so they didn't want to do that. So they're sitting at home trying not to socialize with anybody, including their own children, and so that they don't bring it into the buildings. And it was a really difficult time for employees, and I can't even count the number of managers and leadership people that just left the industry. They're like, I don't ever want to deal with that again. I'm getting out of senior living because that was too difficult on me and my family, and personally and professionally, to see residents passing away from that, because they did. But then also being worried about the rest of them, and how deep that trend would go, and how many people would be lost. And it was terrible. And but fast forward a few years, and these people are now in their early mid 70s owning these properties, and it's time. And you've heard about it in all industries. The baby boomers that owned all the businesses have been exiting for 5 to 10 years now. And in this type of business, they hold on a little bit longer because it's so personal. It's such a personal business, and they want to control who's taking over if they can. Like have some input, or at least some knowledge that it's going to be somebody that's going to take care of the residents that they love, and make sure that the team members that work for them are taken care of after they step away.
Yeah, yeah, all those points are exactly right. Like historically, those owners that you mentioned in their 40s and 50s when they first purchased them, they had a good 15, 20 years, right? So there's no need to sell kind of pre-COVID. So that's why syndicators like myself didn't see this come online, because there was nothing for sale, because they were making good money. They were happy. They created a job for themselves. They made money and cash flow and lived their happy life. It was, I think, this COVID era that kind of changed their
Oh
outlook,
yeah,
right?
it
And
changed everything. It
opportunity
really
for
did.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, it really changed it a lot. And what we used to say when it came to the real estate side, and or selling the business and real estate, was like, okay, you get your check after you sell it. Where are you going to put? What investment do you have that can return the same amount of money that you were doing in senior living? If you're selling a good property, like, so when you sell a good property, in the past it was like, well, where else can you get that type of investment? You should probably just keep it. Figure out a different way to reduce the stress in your life and keep the property. And then if your property wasn't performing, nobody wanted to buy it. It was like, well, who wants to buy a failing asset? Um, and and who wants to finance that? So banks, wouldn't do things into, large net worth investors who were the only options didn't want to take that kind of a risk because they didn't need to. They had, opportunities flowing at them constantly. So now I'm really excited about what you guys are doing, gathering investors that are more of the mom and pop type investors, the people that have done well, made some money professionally, but are looking for an investment where they're not having to go. So one of my favorite shows to watch on Saturday morning is called Zombie House Flipping. And usually it's the group out of Florida that I find the most entertaining, but finding things and rolling up your sleeves and uncovering just the worst things, buying the worst house in a nice neighborhood kind of situation, that I know you're familiar with, but yeah, I love watching that. But the risks that they take, and in doing that, and if you don't have the knowledge, it's difficult to go out and find properties, and then hope that you uncover or plan for the worst case scenario. All of a sudden, you have to replace a roof. You have to do big bad things. So this takes the risk out. Now, of course, you don't have crazy over the top returns. They're scaled down a little bit because you don't have the risk. But yeah, the opportunities are there for zombie senior living flips.
So yeah, so my buy box, if you want to call it, like what I look for in a senior living asset, is not that bright and shiny A-class facility that's 95% occupied and looks has all the bells and whistles and has the marble flooring and stuff like that. To me, there's it's a high price tag. B, there's no real upside to that. It's just kind of a buy and hold. You make a little bit of cash flow. You're happy, you can sleep at night type of thing, but you're not exposing that investment to its potential. So what I look at are B minus, maybe C plus class facilities that are, I don't know, 20 to 30 years old maximum, that might need a little TLC, might need a little paint and change flooring, just kind of bring it back to life, a little landscaping outside, but that are kind of mom and pop owned, and they're a little bit below market rents. So I now look for a value add play. Say, hey, if I get this property at $2,800 on average rent, but down the street, my competition is offering $3,500 a month rent. Where's the disconnect? So I do my research. Sounds like a good deal. So right away, from whatever I said, 2,800 to 3,500, I've increased the value of that asset by $800 per month per unit. Times that by, I won't get into detail, but a cap rate, and then that just expresses the valuation of that asset. So we're looking for a value add play that can boost those returns for ourselves and our investors.
Yeah, the properties that you're talking about are similar to the properties that we get involved with. A lot of times under 50 or 60 beds or units, and older buildings that can be repurposed sometimes, because they can't compete with the more independent type, market, active adults, because the space is limited. You can't have all the extra amenities that everyone expects, and you don't have walk-in closets and granite countertops in your unit, and a private dining room and chandeliers, and a swimming pool and a sauna and workout room. So
All the stuff the resident has to pay for.
yeah. Regardless, yes, you have to pay for that. You pay for bigger units. You pay for all of the amenities. None of that is free, and it's pretty amazing what some of the other senior living providers who focus on that, and can get $4,000 or $5,000 per month with all of those new fresh amenities, because it's also specifically designed for seniors, so it's a little more senior friendly than just moving into a standard apartment complex or condos. So they have, lots of wonderful things going on and programs and to keep people active. But in what you're talking about, these value add opportunities, it's oftentimes memory care services, where the focus is on the care, and bigger isn't always better because you're trying to get people interactive and keep them active and busy in a different way so that they're not isolated sitting in their room and having no socialization.
Yeah.
And that's a different play and a different type of investment opportunity. But it can also work pretty well. And the opportunities are different because there's not as many buyers in that market. Investors
Correct.
looking for those smaller ones, they're, the most investors are still looking at the glitzy, glamoury 125 unit. But everybody's looking for that. Companies that used to only grow by development are now growing only by acquisition. And instead of developing a new 125 unit campus, they're buying one for less than they develop it for. And oh, by the way, even if it's at 50% occupancy, if you build a new one, it starts at 0%. so,
Yeah.
so they're looking at like, oh, well, this thing's only 5 years old. Somebody didn't do well and it's only at 50% occupancy. Well, we can buy that at a discount and turn around and run with it. And that's great for them. And there are some of those opportunities, but they're few and far between compared to the this business in the late 90s, early 2000s was building these smaller communities in every town across America, which is wonderful. It's a great community resource to have that available. Um,
Yeah.
and local.
Yeah. So that's exactly the buy box I look at is kind of 40, 50 units to up to 75, 80 units. We have some existing facilities outside of Florida in a couple in Wisconsin and in Georgia. And I'm heavily looking in the Florida market, especially Central Florida, like Orlando, Tampa area. It's just demographically, it's growing. Um, Population, it's growing. Where would seniors move? Kind of end of life. They're going to come to God's heaven, right?
It's a place where they've been going for 40 years. My parents back in the 70s bought a lot in the Fort Myers area. And every year we would trek on down from Illinois and Wisconsin, where I grew up, to Florida and check out their investment piece of land. The typical swampland in Florida. That they divided up and sold for $5,000 a lot, and then we'd take our trip over to Disney World, and then back then you could write off that trip as visiting your investment property. And that's how these groups would sell thousands and thousands of lots. And yeah, my parents never built on that, but they turned around and sold it for $100,000.
Yeah, that's what real estate does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so real estate plan.
Um,
You can make a lot of
and
money in real estate with different avenues, different options.
yeah, so and I very at a young age, my parents had a 3 unit apartment building in a small town that they didn't have time to keep up with. So one of the renters was not paying rent. One of them had cats that made the place, quite the odor. And we had, and I got the opportunity in my mid 20s. They said, all we want out is, what we owe on the mortgage, and anything above that you can sell it for is yours. And I went in, got a dumpster, had to call the local police because there was an abandoned car, and do all the things to evict somebody and paint and rip out carpet and, fill the dumpster up a few times, and get it sellable. And it created a nice little nest egg, so to speak, to get started.
Yeah. Yeah, the power of real estate, right? It
Yeah.
always goes up if you know the market and know how to take care of that piece of property, right? You have to
Yeah.
value add, you have to renovate, you have to bring it up to certain standard, and then you're
Yeah.
forcing the appreciation.
So, Roberto, if people want to get a hold of you and talk to you more about the investments that you have going, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm very, very active on Instagram. It's my name, Roberto.Carabetta. That's my Instagram handle. You can also email me at roberto@blueshorescapital.com. Either way, I will respond within 24 hours. We have a bunch of investments coming up. We have a lot of opportunities in the pipeline. Like I said, I'm actively looking in Central Florida area. I just believe in that market. I've done a lot of market research. If you want to know about the deals that are upcoming or just education on that syndication model that we spoke about, reach out to me. I'm here to help, here to educate, here to spread the word.
Well, I'm really excited with our new venture, NuCare Florida, as we work on this first group of 4 buildings and bring those on board, and then look for the next opportunity to continue to grow together as an operator and investor in the
Yeah,
group. I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to be part of something that is new and innovative on the investment side, because it for years and years there hasn't been a lot of this going on in senior living, and the more, I don't know, average Joe investors that can be part of this and part of what I'm doing, I'm excited about it.
absolutely. Likewise. In the syndication model, you need partners, right? Maybe a partner that can raise capital, a partner that can sign on the loan, a partner like NuCare that can operate the facility. So all these partners have to work together to for the greater good, right? It's not just a solo play; it's a team effort. Well, your piece of the puzzle is essential.
We need you guys. I brought in a new partner to our group that is based in Florida, has done care in Florida for 25 years, on the board of Florida Senior Living Association. We're not going to enter a new state like this unless we have the resources to truly make it great and do it better than anyone else. So we're really excited about that. So excited to be partnered with you on our new ventures there, and continuing to go out and find new opportunities to partner up again and again as we're moving forward together. I truly appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing for the industry as well, and bringing new opportunities for people to be part of it. And thank you. And thank you for joining me today. I really always appreciate our conversations. I feel like we could sit here for 4 hours and feel the...
I think we've done that once or twice.
Yeah, I think we have, as we're getting to know each other. It's been a great ride so far. I look forward to the rest of the journey.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Joel. All the best, buddy.
Thanks, Roberto. Take care.
Bye-bye.